All right, we're recording.
All right, guys, welcome to A Cure for Your Opinion.
A Cure for Your Opinion with
snap.
Julian Sanchez.
Glad to be here, guys. Good to see y'all.
The Spanish Sanchez, not the Mexican
The
one.
Spaniard.
So, member of the USA Sambo team, man. How
Yeah,
cool is
that was always like a dream of mine. Whenever I first, I try to put it to where like when you go to your coaches in Sambo or wrestling, you always go to like your first, middle school wrestling coach.
Yeah.
Then he passes you on to your high school. Then he passes you on to your college, and then so on and so forth if he gets to that high enough level. That's how I felt with my coach. With his family being Russian, his wife, he really got me onto it as far as being, getting used to it, or even being like, I guess, shown what Sambo is. He was the first person introduced to me. That's the best way to say it, right? And he showed me like the basics of it, how to do it. We trained a lot of it, and that was one of the great things that I learned.
When was that?
Man, I don't even remember. I think it was mid-high school, second year of high school, because I was also doing varsity wrestling at the time. I've always been competitive, so I always did wrestling, track, football, and then I was always trying to compete. That is always my fun side of it, is competing. Mm-hmm. Just because I feel for me that it challenges me a lot, and that is what drives me. Because you can get lost, and lose faith in your stuff, but where like if you have like I want to coach these guys, I want to build them up. Right. I want to have an awesome kids class. I want to have an awesome gym. And then for me, like that same spark is I want to have great competition. I want to have something for my kids to see back in the day. Because what really opened my eyes is that my grandfather was a professional middleweight boxer.
Okay.
And that's what really sparked us into it. My uncles, they all boxed, all that kind of stuff. My mom took like karate and that kind of stuff. My dad did taekwondo.
So there's a lot of martial arts in your family.
A lot of martial arts, but it was funny because I was also held back from martial arts. My mom was like, I was like my mom's like little China doll.
Oh, she didn't want you to get hurt.
She didn't want me to get hurt and nothing like that. And it's funny, like I don't even think I got dirty until I was like 4 or 5 years old when my mom came home to my grandma. I was staying with my grandma, and I was all dirty, playing in the mud. My mom totally freaked out. What's going on? But because of that, and there's also some like family problems with like my mom's dad, the boxer. They ended up getting separated.
Okay.
And so it did cause her a little trouble. So she saw like what could happen.
Yeah.
He was getting a little stardom. He had a lot of attention from girls, and got kind of swayed from the family about that. But awesome boxer. I still have his original poster. I'll try to find it and then and show y'all. But I also have his Golden Gloves jacket. You get like an old jacket. It's like the old sweater, and then it's blue, has a Golden Gloves patch on the side and the back. So I have that, and eventually I want to get it framed up on like a shadow box and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways,
your grandfather's.
That was my grandfather's. So that was a real inspiration to me. Is like this guy's dead. I've never met any of my grandfathers. I only had grandmas. So for me, I was brought up in a very, very girl-dominated environment. Even my cousins, I think we're only like 2 boys out of like 11 girls. Mm-hmm. So that was the key thing, is that I always, my dad, of course, was my main role model. But my grandfather was something for me to aspire to as far as like where I wanted to try to do. And my mom hated the fact that I wanted to fight. Like, she kept me away from boxing. She kept me away from like a lot of stuff, like trying to protect me.
Right.
She wasn't trying to like maliciously do that, but she wanted to just keep me away from it. But it was funny, full circle, how in turn it just I had a knack for it. I tried everything. I tried football. I was good at wrestling, and that's where I kind of found my niche. And my first match in wrestling, it's kind of funny. I had a wrestling coach, was Coach Pellissier, old Navy wrestler, real cool dude. And one of my training partners on our team, Marco, he actually wrestled with me, and that dude was like 160 shredded abs, like a stud. Now he's about 230. He's a big boy now. But me and him have been friends since high school, since the first day on the mats. But my first match, and this is how crazy wrestling is. So if you have a kid out there, guys, and they're doing it in high school, you messed up. You better put that kid in early.
Yeah.
Because my first training.
And this was in Texas?
Yeah, Texas, 3 months. I had 3 months of training in my freshman year. We're going to go compete. And when I went to compete, I'm sitting next to my guy. We're all talking in the same kind of bracket, weight category. And I'm like, hey, how long you been training? Trying to just get on the competition. I was like, how long you been training? He was like, 7 years. I was like, what the fuck, coach? I looked at my coach like, you said, are you serious? I'm getting marked. I'm going to get killed out here. He goes, oh, you're going to do good, Sanchez. You're going to do good. Go out there, have some fun. I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to get killed. But when it actually came down to it, my freshman year, I think It just clicked. I ended up pinning all my opponents. So every match that I won, I pinned every single one of my opponents. I believe I only lost 2 matches. It's been a while. 2 matches by points. So the majority of the time, I would shoot a basic double, run the half Nelson, and they would flip on their back. And then I would do almost like a Marcelo, choke, where like you have north-south.
Yep.
And I would hold them in that, pick their head up, and I would actually get the pin a lot of the time. And what's funny, people don't know, once you get there, if you get yourself out of the mat, you can stand up. But what I would do is I would hold that guillotine, like that north-south, and I would pull them back every time. Just keep pulling them back into the ring. And I would always win that way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that that's how I kind of got into it. And I figured out, I said, okay, I tried football. I'm not that good. I'm fast. I tried track. I'm not that good at, doing the relay stuff. But what I found out is that in martial arts and fighting, I was really good. Like, that was my niche. Like, it just naturally flowed with me.
Right. It felt comfortable. So for people that don't know what Sambo is, like, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this today was because you're an awesome dude, for one, but you are pioneering Sambo here in the area. So for people who don't know what it is, can you explain just what Sambo is in general?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about Sambo is that it was a big boom before Jiu-Jitsu, Jiu-Jitsu took off on the first UFC, right? So that was the key thing. But what made a difference was that UFC really opened everybody's eyes. And I think that was the reigning factor. Sambo has a big root in wrestling. It's funny, if you're in Russia or you have like Russian friends or coach or whatever, one of the big things is like there's no word for rolling in the Russian language. Or like,
They just use sparring? Or
no, everything is wrestling. Sambo wrestling, judo wrestling. There's no word for like let's roll, It's like we're going to wrestle. Like everything is wrestle. So he may be a wrestler, but that dude does Sambo or judo or whatever. But what Sambo is, it's a Russian art. It was originally developed for the military. And what's great about it is that, number one, is it is sport-based, but there's a combat side to it. So if you are an MMA guy, I think it's the closest analog you can get to. And it's a funny thing that there's not that much in the States right now. And like I said, because that was, when it first started, it was real big in the wrestling community, which, USA, one of the main big sports is wrestling besides football, as far as like being adopted into the actual school system. Like if you go to Korea, you do judo. You start from a little kid, and it ultimately dictates what university you go to.
It's in just like wrestling is rooted
exactly.
In
so it means the same thing. It's your education on your skill level is going to depend on where you go.
Man.
Yeah. So in Sambo, that's the same way it is in Russia. And one of their schools, Sambo 70, which is like the Mecca, like if you go to train, and then Boris is another one. I believe it's, I get them mixed up, but one's in Moscow, and then I believe one's in St. Petersburg. Okay. But they're 2 great schools. The biggest one is that these kids are trained from a young age in Sambo, so they'll be young, but it's part of the curriculum. So you go to school, but you're also an athlete there.
Wow. And
the coaches are paid on how many champions they get. You could be off a little bit on that, but that's what I was told.
So they're incentivized.
No, they're incentivized to make champions. So what they do is their training is really grueling. And as far as like, okay, you do like a 10-mile run before school starts. Then you start school. Then you do like 2-a-day trainings in school.
So it's straight Russian training that you would imagine.
Yeah.
Like, Russians are crazy, man.
Yeah, they're wild people, but they know how to get results.
Yeah, they're tough. Super, super tough and scary. It's like whenever you see a Russian MMA fighter, it's almost like there's just something different about them. It's like they've been fighting bears and shit their whole life.
It's their training is different, I think, and I think that's how it should be here for other stuff. Like, like wrestling coaches. Yes, it does dictate like what you get paid a little bit, I think, but ultimately they want to have like their guys go to state, and what like that. But for them, it's a little different.
Well, they're straight results driven.
Yes, like that's what their pay is dictated.
No
on.
BS.
Yeah,
we want results.
And that's a cool thing about Sambo. And Sambo is basically like it's the offshoot of judo and a mixture of different arts. And what it relies on, it's a faster paced game, is what I want to say. And what you do is you rely on the jacket, the kurka. There's a difference in it. The difference in the jacket and the kurka is that they have the belt loops, which I think all BJJ folks should adopt.
Your belt never comes off. Sense.
Well, your belt never comes off, and if you grab it, you can do a lot better, like back takes with it.
Right, you can actually use it instead of it slipping around.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you'll hardly see any belt fall off and like them take a break.
Yeah, that's a big part of jiu-jitsu culture. It's an excuse to take
I'm not going to say who did it, but I did see it at the Pan Ams this past year.
Yeah.
On the heavier weights against one of our guys. One of the guys, he was going good, but he clearly was not in that weight class. He should have been lower.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's like minus 100 kilograms. But when he was going against them, you can see him kind of like pulling on that belt a little bit.
Yep.
And he was like, oh,
Yeah,
had to fix the belt.
Here's a nice 30-second to 1 minute, depending on how long they take.
Yes, it was like, what's going on here?
And then Kirka also has a handle on the shoulder, right?
Yeah, that is called an epaulette. And that just gives you an extra grip for there as well. And for the origins of that, I do not know. But on that, it does give you an extra grip as well. Like I said, it's designed for you to grip both sides. And it's great for back takes and used for like pinning your opponent. But one of the good things about that separates, let's say, judo and sambo, because those two were mirrored really close. And at the same time, the best athletes that we pull from the USA, this is what I've been told from the coaches, for the USA coaches, they always, and they also give advice to other countries that are struggling, they always give it to pull from your national judo team. Said, yes, hold your nationals, do that, but again, too, where you don't have the guy that you feel, right, is going to do strongly, not experienced or whatever, they're going to pull from their national judo team. And that result by itself has got a lot of wins for the USA. Like, I mean, on the Pan American continent, we did very well. Like this past one in Colombia, we took first in combat sambo, and there's some good fights, hard fights. And the difference is in combat sambo from MMA, MMA you may fight one guy one night and that's it. Combat sambo, if you're doing sports sambo, you'll do that Saturday morning like a tournament, go through 4 or 5 guys, whatever it is, rest up. Sunday morning, you're back on the mat fighting 4 or 5 guys, but MMA style.
Oh.
Back to back.
So they'll do sport one day, combat the next.
Yes.
And in combat sambo, I think you will see them wearing headgear, right?
Yeah.
And shin guards, but that's the only difference from that in MMA?
Well, the only difference is that I like the scoring system better. It's the strikes don't count, right? If you knock somebody down, you get a point. Okay. If you knock them out, of course, you win.
So regardless of how you knock them down, whether you take them down or you knock them down with a strike, you get a point for knocking them down.
Yes. If they get hit with a hand and they fall, they do get a point. And what it does is it forces a style. And like I said, if you watch American Madoff, all the other guys, Fedor, they do something really, really interesting. And it comes from combat sambo training. They're trying to strike. They call it casting punches. They're trying to hit. But they're trying to close distance.
Yeah, their strikes are setting up their takedowns.
The takedowns and the grips. And what a lot of people don't understand is that, yes, a lot of sambo guys have amazing, amazing wrestling because in those areas, you have a lot of good wrestlers that will cross-train in both.
Gotcha.
But they are monsters in the clinch. Like one thing I can say, if you're going against a sambo guy, do not clinch with that dude. Try to shoot under his legs or do some weird funky stuff.
Because they're comfortable there.
They're very comfortable there. And it's different from, let's say, BJJ, where you're okay with going on your back. They're not comfortable going on the back. So they will fight tooth and nail to put you on, on the floor. So they do tend to score takedowns a little better, or throws, whatever.
Which translates well to MMA.
Yes.
Example, Khabib.
And he's a monster. What a lot of people don't realize, and they will say, oh, he's a world, he's a sambo fighter, but what they always neglect to say, and I watched some analysis video on the comment. I'm like, dude, you totally did not even state that he was a 2-time world champion. Yeah. And the thing about that, it's very hard to get to that level. Like, the difference I would equate it to is kind of like judo, and it's the best analog for how it kind of should work. You have to get a national team, so you have to qualify for nationals. Mm-hmm. For the national pool, the guys they have. So you may just even be a placer, but if you're a good fit for that tournament, they're going to pull you. And you're going to go ahead and go and compete against the Pan American Games. In the Pan American Games, you fight the best fighters that are the national guys, placers, national champions, but you fight them on this side of the hemisphere. So whenever I went there, I was fighting the best guys on this side of the hemisphere. And that's from Canada all the way down to the very bottom of the South American peninsula and stuff like that.
So the Americas, pretty much.
Best people in the Americas from each team. And like I said, once you go from there, you'll go ahead. If you win, this is the cool part about it. Yeah, you do have to fund yourself to get there because you do get a little, not as much funding as you would like because sambo here is not as pronounced yet, or it kind of faded a little bit. But once you get, and let's say you place, we had several placers on our team that had placed for the world championship. Mm-hmm. They get free ride tickets. They get the publicity. They get the free ride tickets to like Sochi, Russia, and that's like the millionaire playground. Like there's a lot of money dumped in that place.
Yeah.
And so they went over there, competed in the Olympic.
It's like the Abu Dhabi
Yeah,
of Sambo.
Yeah, it's amazing. And those guys there, world class. Like if there was an Olympics for Sambo, those guys would be the ones competing. Like, and that's one of the things that.
And that's in Sochi.
That was in Sochi last time.
Didn't they just recently have the Olympics there? Or they're going to?
I believe they had it there a while back.
Oh,
I think that's actually one of the controversies that they had, was that they had messed up the Sochi Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
The Russians,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
We were chatting about that earlier.
Yeah,
that's good.
And that's the thing. So let me just kind of clarify Sambo. I kind of skipped through here and there. But Sambo is like, you're trying to do throws with the gi and takedowns, but you're doing it for big throws and big takedowns. You're trying to do it to also pin your opponent and also go for submission. So it's a very fast style. You can get 8 points to tech. So what that means, if you get 8 points more than your opponent, you win. So it has an awesome dynamic.
So you can either beat them 8-0 or they can be beating you 4-0 and you come back and get 12 points and beat them 12-4.
Yes.
So just 8 ahead of them.
Yeah, and you will win. And that's the thing that wrestling, I think wrestling has 12. Would these be 15? Now it's 12, which when you decrease the number, it makes the game faster and more dynamic.
And that's in all wrestling groups?
Yeah, any kind of aspect of wrestling, where it's
college
Greco,
wrestling or
Greco, it's freestyle, whatever you're doing. There is a tech system in place, and I think that's one of the big things for jiu-jitsu that I wish that they would implement. And I think you would see a lot more crazy stuff happening. Just forcing wilder stuff, exchanges.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from that, Sambo, what they do is it's a very stand-up based art. You're going to be doing a lot of throws, takedowns. Your submissions are quick. You can use the whole time if you want to. But when it's happening, they need to stand you up a lot. So they'll pull you off your feet. Okay, up to your feet, boom, going back. So you're going for your throw, you're going for your takedown, and then if you want to go for the submission, you'll throw some crazy submissions too. But it's mainly 20% grappling, and it's going to be the rest on your feet.
Okay.
But it has the possibility to do 100%.
So it's a little bit more nuaza or grappling on the ground than you would see in judo.
Yes, it's a lot more than judo.
Judo's a lot more strict as far as staying on the ground. Like, you have to be active.
Yeah, and it's like that weird cousin that, he always does a little bit of weird stuff, doesn't follow the rules. That's kind of what Sambo is.
Gotcha.
Where judo is very strict on the grips, Sambo is very relaxed. And then where jiu-jitsu is a little different, Sambo will pull different aspects of that as well.
Right. That's something I want to chat with you about. If you think about it like in broad spectrum, you have jiu-jitsu, Sambo, catch wrestling, judo, Japanese or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Greco, freestyle, all this stuff. The only difference between all of them is the rules. And so you have different styles, but it feels like everything is the same. It's just different rule sets. We're all just grappling. So if you say in judo, let's say wrestling and jiu-jitsu, for example, your back can't be on the mat, you lose. Well, in jiu-jitsu, your back can be on the mat, you just lose some points, and it's not quite over, right? And you keep going. So you have all of these moves that people get good in specific areas, as we were chatting about earlier, and they're good in those areas because that plays to that rule set. And so why do you think it is the different arts are focusing on these specific rules? Like, I feel like judo, they outlawed you can't grab the legs, right? So they had wrestlers coming in, double leg and single leg, and they want the big throws. And you said something earlier, they outlawed something else in judo.
This is funny because I like to watch a lot of judo. I think judo has the best spectator aspect of it. It has the best.
And you think that's what they're trying to maintain?
Yes, but two, also they're trying to preserve the Japanese. They're very traditional. There is even styles within judo that are classical, and then a more new, more modern style. And you'll hear the commentators say, okay, this is a new style. He's more like a modern fighter, Hashimoto, which is world number 1 right now from Japan, 73 kilos. By far my favorite. If you think, judo is boring, just go watch that guy. That guy will throw you over your head beautifully.
What do you think, real quick, the difference between classical and modern? You think classical, in relation to someone who trained jiu-jitsu, would be more considered like self-defense basics, and modern is people playing berimbolo and inverted and leg locks and all that?
When it comes to judo, from what I've seen, what it comes down to is the grips. The Japanese will force you to do a very basic style, and it's not that it's bad. It's just the very beginning of the style, how it ended up is a sleeve, lapel. Basic. Just your number one, sleeve, lapel. And a lot of their throws come off that Taitoshis, all the other stuff like that. That is a very classic way to play it. I would say that. If you watch a guy like Hashimoto, what he does, and what I was showing you earlier, when they go above and you grab the lapel, you grab the sleeve and push it over with one hand.
Right.
That is a technique that he does. That's a sode. And that is like a one-handed, arm throw. And what it does, that's a very non-classical type of throw. And so when you hear commentators talking about it, it's mainly how they grip, how they approach the grip fighting strategy. And that is, I think Judo and Sambo have the most advanced gripping strategies, with Judo being the most advanced because of how high level they are right now.
Right.
How much exposure they got, Olympics and whatnot. But where it comes into play is the freedom in Sambo, that you can grab anything that you want. Like if you grab a belt in Judo, like we were talking about earlier, you can only grab it for 3 seconds, or you have to throw, or you get penalized. Sambo, you don't.
So in Judo, you can grab a belt if it's more than 3 seconds without going for a throw.
You would get penalized.
So you think their advanced grip systems are because they're primarily the arts that are in the gi, standing, going for those big throws, so that it's had to develop?
Yeah, if you look at jiu-jitsu, and if you look at, like you said, classical jiu-jitsu, or BJJ, I should say, you look at classical BJJ with the gi, not on no gi, but with the gi, the traditional grips are very simple. You're going to grab the collar, control one sleeve. Whereas now you'll see some crazy stuff. You're seeing, spider guards. You're seeing worm guards. You're seeing all kind of just weird different grips off the pant, behind the belt, behind the leg.
That you would say that's not traditional jiu-jitsu.
That's not traditional jiu-jitsu. But it's a more modern, it's the evolution.
Right.
And this is one thing that I always say when people talk about styles, is that things come in and out, right? Let's say fighting in general, not just jiu-jitsu, not just Sambo, whatever it is, but fighting in general is not math. This is not 2 + 2 = 4, okay? When we go on the mat, we compete as coaches. We're going to go see in the tournament how the landscape has changed. Take leg locks, right? At first, you couldn't do leg locks. It was just, you're getting like shame put on you, whatever it is.
Right. It was huge. 10 years, 8 years ago, when I really started to dive into leg locks, and people would just look the other way, cheap, cheesy. You remember all this?
Yeah.
You remember all this?
I believe Matt's a really good, promoted that too.
Yeah, Matt pushed it a lot, and we would do it even though people didn't like us, and that fit into Matt's personality. He kind of likes people not liking him.
I like that. A little feisty.
But he's got killer leg locks, and they started to develop with him, and then that's why I enjoy training with you. So your leg locks are awesome as well. But yeah. It was out of the norm. It was out of tradition. Yeah. And it was shunned. It was looked down upon. And we didn't really question. It's interesting to see how many people don't question why they're like, oh, that's not IBJJF legal, or that's not, you shouldn't do that. It's like, why? It's like, well, that's what someone told me. You never question why we're doing that. You never question why something's legal and illegal. And that's what I was hitting at earlier, is like the grappling arts, it's like what works and what doesn't. So you can say, well, we don't need to focus on takedowns that much. Well, what if you take me down and knock the wind out of me and I can't fight anymore, right? Or you take me down and put me on my back and your top gain's unstoppable.
Yep.
So you have what works and what doesn't.
That's very true.
That's why I disregard traditional and modern. I don't care. Like if you're going to play some modern guard and I'm just going to smash it with traditional, then great. But if I'm going to play traditional, you're just going to pass it with some modern guard pass or take me down with some modern throw, then good. That's what works. Yeah.
And it is good to know. Like, let's say, if it's an art-based, it's good to know the roots of your...
Absolutely.
Like the roots of your art, I would say. Let's say it's good to know the self-defense, the very beginnings, the very basic old stuff that, doesn't work, but, it's a part of your tradition. And it's good to know that, but at one point, if you're competing, it's important to understand that, look, this is how I look at it too, is that, number one, fighting, jiu-jitsu, Sambo, whatever, this is the landscape, right? This is an arms race, and it's always changing. The only constant in this game is change. And if you're not willing to change, you're going to get left behind.
Oh, man. That's so true.
Yeah. And, you can look at, let's go back to, the first UFC, right? Gracies were dominating. Gracies were the main thing. But now they're not the top team no more.
No.
They're not the top of the heap. And it's just because of change. And a lot of the Gracies are very forward thinking. They're very, they're helping the sport out, doing a lot of great stuff. And some, just like with any clan, clique, any type of family, some are going to be more hesitant on the old ways.
Right.
So you'll see that kind of push and pull, unlike the media now from the Gracie family. But the key thing is change. So the ones that have changed, they're adopting awesome stuff, leg locks, more takedowns. And the funny thing is that leg locks are going to be good for about 5 years.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Just like rubber guard. Yeah. Leg locks were bigger than rubber guard was. It's bigger than deep half was because it was a huge hole.
The controversy, yes.
It was a huge hole. People were shunned, afraid to go for it. Yeah. But that gap is slowly getting filled.
And, I mean, you're so right on that, too, because, I mean, if you look at, let's say, Bravo, like when he first came out, some weird dude, doing some weird stuff. People hated him.
People hated him. Hated it. Yeah. They didn't like it because it was different.
Yeah, it was
and
change.
It challenged their identity. That's one of the big things. Like Khabib wore a shirt, I remember back in the day, it said, if Sambo was easy, it would be called jiu-jitsu. Right?
I'm going to go on a funny tangent right here.
real quick, though. Real quick.
Sorry.
And I remember part of me being like, I'm kind of offended right now.
Yeah.
Like we always make fun of people being offended on this podcast.
I saw that and I was like, oh, shit, my friends.
But at the same time, I was like, why would that hurt my feeling? Because if he's doing something, I'm interested in what works. Mm-hmm. I appreciate jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu, right? I got my black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yes. But jiu-jitsu now, it's changing. It's not just jiu-jitsu anymore. And I'm more interested in teaching and sharing and training what works. And so if Sambo is, the legit form of jiu-jitsu, then that's what I want to learn. And so if you look at it that way, it's not going to hurt your feelings. Yeah. You shouldn't identify specifically with your art if you want to get better.
Yeah, it's true. And that's the thing, like I was saying on that, when I actually went to the 2015 Nationals, I think it was in San Antonio, one of the top girls there had a shirt on, and she's a monster good girl. Like she's top in judo. They pull her for the world team. Like she's world level. And she actually trains out at Nina Kuchikeli. She's an amazing judo girl, awesome in Sambo. But she trains down in Austin, so she's an amazing resource. But a lot of it, she is more judo heavy.
Right.
But she's still a great resource for the Texas Sambo places. But when I saw that shirt and I saw that come out, I was like, oh shit, there's some explaining to do.
Well, I mean, hey, I would wear that. I mean, if I did Sambo, because you guys are trying to get Sambo out there. You're trying to show that, hey, jiu-jitsu blew up, and then it just snowballed down this hill, but it's really submission grappling that we're all doing, right?
Yeah,
and it's focused on different areas. So if you're trying to get it out there, just building a little controversy is going to help, you know?
And the funny thing you say submission grappling about that, man, and this is the thing about it. Before there was any type of jacketed arts, there was wrestling, just basic. You're just doing basic, any like extra gear, right? You're just using your body.
Yeah.
That was the origin of it. Then it translated to like Mongolian, wrestling, Chinese belt wrestling, and you're just wearing a belt. You're trying to throw, and you get a little advantage from grabbing that belt. And then it evolved into wearing a kimono, a gi, right? And then going forth with that. And this has changed. But guess what? Everything comes and goes. So guess what's coming back now? The no-gi stuff, because they're seeing. Rid of the gi. And I don't think because it's better. I don't think so. I don't think because it's better or worse. What I think is we're in the realm now where people don't want to do just one art. They want to cross-train. They want to do striking, too. They want to do this and that. I think it's just a good medium to be in, that it flows good with everything else. It flows good. So you want to do BJJ? Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of those movements do work with it. You got to just learn some, choke defense.
It's a good middle ground.
Yes, it's a good middle ground to branch out to other stuff. But let's say, because right now the driving force is MMA. That is what pushed jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That MMA is what pushed jiu-jitsu. So that being a good middle ground is good for everything. Sambo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, whatever. But I think that is why it's coming back so hard now.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I think has a lot to do with it? The internet. Mm-hmm. If you think about people training traditional styles, if you lived in Japan and you're training judo, you're not going to see Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You might see it here or there. But with the internet, now you're like, oh, I could apply that to my game. You're on YouTube on your phone, and you see that, and you're like, I could apply it to my game. Look up a judo school down the street, train judo twice a month, addition to your jiu-jitsu or this or that. You wouldn't have had that before. And I think, hundreds or thousands of years of that cliquish martial arts where they're like, this is what we train from where I'm from. You build your identity in it. You're not going to cross-train. But true. Now it's so much access to information.
I mean, you see how many open mats there are.
Yeah. Where it's like, hey, come train, share your knowledge.
Yeah. And I think that's the deal. I think we're in a time of openness as far as like our egos.
Yeah.
Where coaches like, you come to my school? we're gonna battle.
Right.
You know, but
Those
now
times
it's
are
like,
going
hey
away.
man, what's going on? You know, and you guys want to crush with you? Cool. Let's cross train the guys. Let's sharpen our own swords. Let's get good. And I think that is the change. And I think, like I said, if you think about fighting, if you have a system, and like my system has changed 5 or 6 times as far as my own personal tactics for fighting, in a competition or whatever. But what really comes down to is just understand that you need to catch the wave, and this only happens by being outside the bubble. If you look at like me, all the time, what I do, I'm a fanatic. I obsess about things. I'm in the restroom. Guess what? I'm on YouTube doing research. Right? I'm trying to look at the best guys, what the best guys are doing. And I don't care about what submission they got. I don't care about what throw they got. I don't care about what takedown they got. I want to see how they set up stuff, because that is the glue that binds all the techniques, is how that system comes together.
Where the transition is.
It's the transitions, man. And everybody knows an armbar. Doesn't matter what variation, you know an armbar. Everybody knows a leg lock now, right? Doesn't matter what you know. The only difference in all this crap is the setups, the game plans. And these change. You need to look at it like football. You don't just have one play and you try to beat everybody with that one play. Because the best teams, if that does happen to them, guess what? You're going to get figured out and you're going to get whooped. Where money's on the line, they train, okay, this is our main type of style of offense, but we have our other subsets of game plans in place when stuff doesn't happen. I think that's a big thing when we grapple. I mean, even last time, me in my last tournament, I was trying to force the throw so much that I ended up, giving up takedowns or whatever it was, or losing my game plan, train of thought. But that's the thing. If it doesn't work, you need to have second gear, third gear. And that's what I always tell my guys. You need to have that second and third gear ready. And 2, there will come a time, but I'm doing a lot now. Like this past month and the next month coming in, haven't even got a single submission. I haven't even tried to get a single submission. And the reason, and also I'm not doing any leg locks per se.
Right.
So I don't want to be hunting those too much, because what I've learned for me for Sambo, I need to get to my main positions. So like, let's say in Jiu-Jitsu, I need to get to my guard. If I get to my guard, I'm good. I won my little battle.
Right.
If I need to do that on everybody, that's the trick. If you have a wrestler, you have a judo guy, if you have a Greco guy, whatever the guy may be doing, if you get him to your guard, that's where your game plan starts. So enhancing that is more important than the end result. Because if you can't get to that guard, that's where we all lose face. We're like, we get tired, or we get, our feelings hurt in a match, and we let things happen that are not in our game plan. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm trying to get to what I call a French grip. If your normal stance is left side sleeve, right hand lapel, you just change it over to left hand lapel, right hand holding the sleeve, holding the wrist, not gripping. And this is brought about by Darcel Yancey. If you don't know who Darcel Yancey is, a European champion in judo. Hurt his hand. Guy can't really grip that long or great with this side hand. Mm-hmm. But his development in controlling that wrist with pressure, and we're showing a little flow drill showing you to that American grip. That guy has an amazing tactics at just dominating his opponents with just one sleeve. One.
That's interesting. On. He had to develop that because his hand was messed up.
Yes. So his thing is he has to get to that position. When he gets that position, he always wins. And it's like your guys, my guys, whatever. If we get to our dominant positions, we're going to win. Mm-hmm. We're going to have the overwhelming odds.
You're right. That's the battle. Mm-hmm. I always explain that strategically. I think we understand that as coaches. Strategically, the battle is not beating them where they're good at. The battle is not, getting your perfect move. The battle is getting to where you're good at.
That's true. And
then you're home. Then you're safe. It's like walking in, after a long trip, you're walking in the front door and you're being home. You're like, I can take a deep breath. Now I can calm down. I know everything to do from here. If he does this, I do this. If he does this, I do that. So you have an answer for everything.
Yeah, it's very true.
So as a coach, your goal is to teach them the transitions and how to defend, so that in order they can get to where they're good at.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was telling Shirley, is like, I never wanted to be a coach, but I ended up getting into coaching.
They say that's how leadership happens.
I guess so.
Jay, our kickboxing coach, was telling me that last night. He goes, leaders aren't the ones that are raising their hand saying, pick me, I want the fame, I want all this. I want to be looked up at. Leaders are the ones that are like, I guess I need to do this. Yeah. Because no one else is doing it right now. It was funny, man. And that's awesome that you put that way, because I never thought about it like that. But what happened was I was cross-training. My coach would bounce from gym to gym,
so I wanted to get cross training in. So we're always a tight knit group of people, 5-10 people, and to get my reps in as far as like my randori or like my live rolling, I would go different gyms and grapple, like open mat basically, just to go with different body types, and that's my main thing for getting ready for tournaments and stuff. And then eventually, I ended up, getting a spot that, people started asking me, hey, can you show me this leg lock, whatever, and I said, yes, no problem. And I would show them. And then one of the coaches, one of the owners at the gym that I'm at now, Frank, good guy, I like him, he said, hey, man, you want to do a class, small class? And I was like, sounds good. And it ended up, that's how it blew up. But initially, my thought was, okay, I'm not just going to be training these guys. I need to get these guys to a certain level to enhance me. So, I mean, it is a little bit selfish.
Right.
But for it to be worth my time, I have to get something too.
Right.
And it's whether it's monetary or training partners, whatever your goal is. Like, we run it as a team, so that's a little bit different. So when we do it, I want to get my guys to a certain level, and then to a certain level to where it is really hard to get a certain submission at like leg lock. It's almost impossible to get it in my gym. Not that we're awesome at it, but we all know the same reads.
That's what you do.
We know the same systems. So it's hard, but what it does is it forces that system to grow. It forces it into an uncomfortable spot where I'm not getting anywhere. I need to look out of the box.
Yep.
To get back to that stuff. And that's how that kind of evolved. But it was really fun. It's taken me to a lot of great places, meet everybody. So, I mean, it's been fun.
You've been grappling for a decade now or more?
Over that, almost 13 going on 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, started off varsity wrestling. Started it, with my grandfather, kind of gave me inspired into it. And then ever since then, I just, started pushing, trying to do other stuff.
You're a prime example of what I was hitting at, man. You wrestled, Sambo, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, both gi and no gi. Mm-hmm. So you're taking the best of everything.
I'm not going to lie, the gi still perplexes me.
Let go of me. It's just handles everywhere, man.
It's just, and it's fun because that's one of the things. Like I think right now, what I'm getting into right now is a lot of judo because that's what they preach. And the USA team, my coach is like, I can show you text. He's like, judo, work your judo randori. Because the guys that they pull in, they're the guys that are monsters. You'll even have Mongolian world champions, Olympic seaters. That will be at the Worlds.
Man.
And it sucks.
Yeah. So you think like Sambo itself doesn't have a lot of exact Sambo techniques. It's more of just wrestling mixed with judo?
No. The difference in the Sambo technique is the tactic. You know what I'm saying? There are certain moves that can't be done in judo, so they evolved. So in judo you can't do a certain move, right?
Right.
It's going to evolve a move when the rule set is allowing it freely.
Exactly.
So certain moves and tactics, like leg locks. I mean, tell me one other sport that was like one of the main ones, right? Mm-hmm. And let me tell you the difference. I forgot to tell you earlier. The difference between judo and Sambo was the fact that now judo allows chokes. Sambo they don't anymore, to differentiate themselves from judo.
Oh.
At one point, yes, you could go for the legs, like takedowns like that, with judo.
No, they don't.
No, you can't, to differentiate themselves from Sambo, because those two play too good. And the funny thing about judo, and this is why I say like they try to keep their art as pure as possible, but they could only be seen by having their art tested. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then they adjust the rule set again. Okay, let's see what happens now.
Gotcha.
When the Sambo guys came in, they were grabbing sleeve, cross grip, right? Dominating. The Russians, they're dominating. And, okay.
With the cross grip.
No more cross gripping, right? You can't.
No way.
You can only cross grip for a certain amount of time. That's what they always try to do. Hashmatar, I forget his name. Hashmatar, Mongolian Olympic guy. One of my awesome guys to watch. But he came in doing awesome type of breaks and grabs. Again, going for the legs. They banned that stuff. And the Mongolians were kicking butt. Mm-hmm. So then it ended up being like the judo is now, where it's a lot of just more classical judo style.
Right.
So
they didn't allow it to evolve.
No. Oh, you know what I'm saying? They did allow it to evolve to hold it back a little bit, to make it pure. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To refine it, I guess.
So what, outside of MMA, what rule set, if you could just combine all grappling, what rule set do you think would serve the best purpose to produce grapplers that not put on a show, not that play the game right, but they could grapple the most efficient. Like, what would you define as the ultimate grappler? What rule set do you think? It's tricky.
It is tricky, but I'll give you a broad answer on that. The majority of arts, like I was telling you earlier, besides BJJ, is the only outlier where their main focus is the ground, right? Yeah, they don't dedicate a lot of time to their takedowns, whatnot. The few places that do, like y'all, y'all are a little more eye open to it. Y'all enhance, y'all do awesome at tournaments. But the difference is if you put jiu-jitsu with anything, any one of those styles, where people go, oh, wrestling is your base you need to have. Yes and no, because unfortunately, I was a wrestler. My whole first year, I got my ass choked out.
Right.
I had to unlearn a lot of stuff.
Yeah, going belly down.
Yes.
Head outside on shots.
Yes. And let's say, let's use MMA as the deciding factor on what is the best style if we combine them. I would say you need BJJ or Jiu-Jitsu as a base over everything else. And people go, well, that's weird. Yes, but like I said, if the majority of all the other arts, which are half and half, stand up, half groundwork, right? If they dominate you, what ends up happening? They end up putting you on the ground.
Right.
So therefore, if your base is jiu-jitsu and your everything else is strong right there, you can literally add any of the other arts that do it 50-50, wrestling, judo, sambo, any of those, and you would have an awesome mix. So I would still think that jiu-jitsu is one of the main ingredients for MMA, but you need to combine any one of the other styles will be good.
But I'm trying to get at, like, if you had to pick a grappling rule set.
Oh, a rule set?
Yeah. What would you say? So what you're saying is perfect.
Yeah.
I agree. I would go base with jiu-jitsu and then add a takedown art after that.
If I would say a rule set, it would have to be sambo because of the less restrictions that they have on it. Even jiu-jitsu does have a lot of restrictions. You can't slam somebody. Right. But that is a key part. When you see a lot of stuff, you get slammed.
Yeah.
But amazing part, I forgot who said it. One of the Gracies said it. I forget who. Apologize for not knowing. But he said if they pick you up, you let go.
Yeah.
Don't hold on.
Yeah. That's so true.
And it's funny, like, guys are getting slammed. You're getting slammed because you're not understanding the basics of jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
So,
that's basic jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So I don't think it should be a rule not to get slammed. But if you get slammed, it's because A, it was an awesome takedown, or B, you didn't let go.
Right.
Either way,
Yeah, it's just this weird scale system where every time you take part one, you get the other. And so you could argue, every which way, but you can always see it from a different angle. Yeah.
And like I said, the art, what I would try to do, I would say no gi is probably, and like I said, we're seeing it now. But as a rule set, I would think it would be sambo. And the reason I say that is because, like I was saying earlier, is it's unrestricted. You have a lot of awesome stuff. And two, the level of players that you bring into that also helps out the rule set.
Right.
And again, it's unrestricted. The grips, unrestricted. Judo, jiu-jitsu, it's restricted. A little bit, like you can't do certain stuff.
Yeah, like in jiu-jitsu, you can't reap the knee and you can't go for, just depending on the tournament, right? If it's a traditional gi tournament and you're not at the expert level, even if you are at the expert level, you can't heel hook. Yeah. You can't attack a certain ankle lock. And to me, that just blows my mind because we don't say, why is it? Well, it's dangerous. Well, no, Kimura is dangerous. Kimura is just dangerous, if not more so. Yeah. Why is it illegal? Is it because the Sambo guys are heel hooking you? Is that what you don't like? Or the Japanese are heel hooking you? Or what's going on here? Yeah. Oh, well, people don't know when to stop. Yeah, they do. They're at the expert level. They do know when to stop.
Yeah, they make a choice not to, or to test the limits of their leg or their arm or whatever it is. And that's why I think that Sambo is a good sport rule set for two things. I'm going to say this. The fact that they have unrestricted on most stuff, but two, they also have a tech system. Yeah. And a small tech system at that, which like wrestling is 12 now. Sambo is 8. What that does for the spectator or even in the game, it makes it very fun. Where other stuff where you get, if you're down on points by 10, 15 points, where I've been in a situation like that, where I've had a guy down, it makes no difference. Right. I'm just going to win by a little bit more.
And he's just going to write it out and not get submitted. He's like, well, I know I'm going to lose. Now I'm just not going to get submitted.
Yes. And then Sambo, what that does is it forces amazing scrambles. And over everything else, the tech system is important. I think everybody overlooks that. But that will generate crazy scrambles. There won't be no draws. It'll be very minute draws at that. So I think Sambo rule set for those two reasons: unrestrictedness on that, and the tech system that they have in place.
So yeah, we've hit grappling up a lot. You said you had something cool about the you printed out.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And by the way, Magnus showed me up earlier about this, but
We'll leave that one off air.
leave that for another time. But yeah, I had found out that I knew that I was some part Spaniard, and it actually maybe have some Indian in me, but for sure I always thought that I was some part Spaniard. I just didn't know how much or what. And because my mom's side, for sure I know. When I really heard about it, my dad had said, well, my grandfather was Spaniard. I was like, oh, crap.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some actually legitimate to this. So I did the test, 23andMe, awesome company. Found out that I'm like 45% Spaniard.
Do they? I forget how they break it down. See if you can look that up, Soul.
Never here. I'm
Oh, sweet. He's prepared.
prepared. Got my tools. Slacking up.
You see the angry
Still the
face.
thunder. But yeah, I have.
And I use 23andMe too, and that website is legit.
It's amazing, man. Just the level of detail that they have in that.
I know. It's
and
unreal.
The things able to reach out. That's amazing.
They break it down to the 1/10%.
Gee, I didn't know that much. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
If you look at it, it's like, 21.7 or something.
And it's funny, like they actually classify it like European, like Spaniard as Iberian. And
Iberian?
Iberian. That's like Iberian Peninsula.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of like another thing you're talking
I'll
about too.
say okay, like I know where that's at.
Yeah,
My
I have no
geography
idea
is
what that. I had to look that up.
My geometry is really bad.
Yeah, mine's bad too. I'm telling you. Look at this. Look. So that's what it was. Ended up being.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then like the Native
So,
American on there. Yeah, I see Eastern Native American right there.
Man, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it's just cool to see that, like it's just
Yeah.
wild to see that. What else was Azakani Jewish 1.7?
Yeah. You know when I saw it on mine, I was like, Ashkenazi.
Yeah,
What's an Ashkenazi?
I have no idea how to
shirt?
say that, by the way.
I get a buddy who's Jewish, Rex. I don't know if he's not Jewish. He was Jewish. He was Messianic Jew. I don't know.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, buddy, check out my results. I'm Ashkenazi. He started dying.
Started
laughing,
tearing
man.
into you?
Yeah, because there's words that you run across online all the time, and you're like, you see it, and you read it over and over and over and over,
Yeah.
and you never know how to actually say it. This dude over here said Oma Palada for 3 years. We all had a joke where it was like, let's get him to black belt.
omoplata.
Let's get him to black belt. Let him say it wrong the whole time.
And then have him do a video on the omoplata.
So finally we broke down. He was teaching the kids one day. There was a whole bunch of people there. I was like, dude, I can't let you say it wrong anymore.
It's funny because like certain words, like I had a coworker, like and she was awesome. She would say instead of, and now when I tell you, it's gonna trick your mind, and you're gonna start saying it here and there too. She would say supposedly. And I would die, and then after the 10th time, I was like, okay, look, it's supposedly.
I think it's supposedly with a
Oh
D.
shit! See, I messed it up too. I tell you, it's confusing your mind. Like so, like, every now and then,
So
I'm
look
like,
that
supposedly.
shit up.
Yeah,
Wait, how
see,
did she say it again?
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Man, I would die when I heard that. I was like, what is that? It was hilarious.
I was watching what was that show? Happy Ducks, Duck Dynasty.
Oh, the Dynasty, yeah.
They gave him a hard time one day because he would say specific like Pacific. He's like, you're gonna need to be a little bit more Pacific.
gotta
And
be
he's like,
Pacific
you mean
like
like the Pacific Ocean? Like, what are you saying?
He did that a lot. Like there was one where they went to Hawaii, and he gets off the little gondola or whatever, the boat that takes him to the hotel. It's on the river, and they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And he's like, "Hola." he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to the Mayan ruins and all that, right?" He's like, "No, that's in Mexico." I was like, "Isn't that where we're at?" And then but he thinks they're in Mexico.
That's
Oh
funny,
my
man.
gosh, man.
It's a
I
great
think
show.
a lot of that show was scripted though.
I
When it
think a
came
lot
out.
was, man. But it still has its little gems and jewels.
I try to ignore that. Reminds me of like you get the same effect. So the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
You ever have anybody tell you, "Oh, it's just a placebo effect"? It's like doesn't really matter because you get the same result.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just your mind tricking you. Well, cool. I figured out a way to trick
Yeah.
my mind.
Either way, it did happen.
Either way, you get the benefit of it.
Either way, the effect is real. So,
There's a nocebo effect.
the heck, I never
Right.
heard about that.
Man, I forget how it goes. Placebo is when you take it and you trick yourself. Look that
Wait, I
up.
thought
Nocebo.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I think
Like
placebo.
when you don't take it, but you think, like, let's say it's a pill. You take
Yeah.
a sugar pill.
Yeah.
Placebo effect. Nocebo effect. See if you look that up. So what's going on with you? Got a Sambo tournament coming up, right?
Yeah, we have the few different. What they do is like when you're on the team, they'll usually call you up, and depending on what weight category you're in, what they're trying to do is fill up a team, right? You have from like the little guys, from like the 50 kilograms, all the way up to like the plus 100 kilogram guys. They're trying to stack a team to go compete. So what they do is they'll pull the best from the USA at those weights.
And how many weight classes are there?
Oh, man, I don't actually remember. I think it goes from 53 all up to plus 100. And I think it goes in like either 11 to 12 pound differences.
Mm-hmm.
So there's quite a bit. We had like I think 11 guys, 12 guys go. Yeah, 12 guys go up there to compete. And what they're going to do, they said, hey, look, we have this pool. We want you to go to the World Cup. And the difference is there are B-level tournaments and there are A-level tournaments. This one is an A-level tournament. Just the competition's a lot better. That's basically what it means. And then you do get prize money here.
Would that be like the difference between amateur and professional?
Yes. But the difference is that in any of those tournaments, you'll still be going against professional fighters.
Okay.
The majority, like MMA fighters, the majority of the time for combat. There's no like distinctiveness about it, but they try to separate the A and B guys.
So this next tournament you have is going to be combat.
I'm doing both. I told him I would do both for our team because we don't have a guy that does 62 kilograms, 136. That'll do it. And two, I do have experience in that as well. You know, I have been striking for a long time, so I feel comfortable with that. But we'll be in Moscow, Russia. So it'll be cool. It'll be a cool one. And the 23rd, May 26th, they're still deciding on the date because what they do is they bid on tournaments, countries. Okay, hey, when we put, this amount of money on this. Oh, this country, we want that tournament. We'll put this amount of money on this. And that's how they do it for judo as well, right? They bid for what tournaments go. So either be in Dumfries, Scotland, or in Paris, France. My second one. I'm probably not going to do the Pan American Games. This time it's in Bolivia. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do that one. I'm just going to focus on the nationals, the World Cup, and then the British Open or whatever it actually is called.
Man, that's cool, dude.
Yeah,
so you're traveling all over for that.
Yeah, that's the big thing about Sambo is that it's very hard to do in the States. There's probably one or two tournaments. You got a national tournament, which is like an absolute tournament, so be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And then as far as skill level goes, and then you have like Rise, which is one of the other coaches for the USA team. The nicest gym I've ever been to for MMA or whatever. I've been in some UFC gyms.
Where's it at again?
It's in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's called Rise?
No. It's called NPR. That's what the National U.S. Sambo Training Center is. And they have the big, nice mats for it, the Sambo mats. It says USA Sambo on it. But they actually host a class there. They have a class there under Mikhail Kaczynski, which if you don't know who Mikhail Kaczynski is, he's the best-known secret in the Sambo community for the USA. He is the gatekeeper to get out of the country. He's also the vice president of USA Sambo. He was in the USSR in the military, but he also trained judo, professional at judo and Sambo in the USSR. His dad, also one of the first guys that competed in the first Sambo World Championships in 1973. Finished a bunch of guys. I think there's a controversy on the gold place medal, the first place medal against a Mongolian. Like I said, the Mongolians and the Russians go back a long way. And then his dad, also got emeritus coach, honored coach, but he trained under Shlikov, I forgot to say that guy's name, but he trained under Roman. The guy's first name is Roman, which he trained under Oshpekov, and that guy was the original two founders of Sambo.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool. The lineage is really cool.
Tight lineage.
Yeah, and then he goes back to Kano, the founder of the Kodokan and stuff like that. He had a black belt in judo and as well as a master of sport in Russia, and then also a honored merited coach from Russia too as well. So the lineage is very strong. So I believe he has one of the strongest lineages in the USA because he doesn't do a lot of podcasts or this and that because he is always taking his guys to compete. He owns a judo school and a Sambo.
Okay, so he's busy.
This guy is always traveling. So you will probably not hear a lot about him. I'm probably one of the only ones that will actually talk about him. Whenever I get my stuff popping, I would definitely want to get him on whenever I go with him. And he actually coached me at the Pan American Games as well. Very kind of like stoic type guy.
Right.
But one of the best guys to have in your corner because he does have a lot of pull with the Russians.
Okay.
So let's say you have another coach. Like the Colombian coaches, they could not get away with half the crap that Mikhail was like yelling to the refs because they were, pulling points from us here and there because we were in Colombia.
Right.
So when he sticks up for you, he has a lot of pull with like the referees.
Man, it sucks how politics always makes its way
man,
and shit
it's
like
crazy.
that. It will do it with not just martial arts,
Everything.
just everything in life.
Yeah,
everything. And I feel like if I was in that position to where I used politics, like if I was a ref and I'm like, this is my country, and I cheat a little bit, I'm like, we didn't really win.
Yeah.
Like, if winning is that important, you're going to know subconsciously you didn't really win. That sucks, dude.
And I have a crazy story, man. Like, just like how wild it was at the Pan American Games. I have the video. One of the cool things whenever you do win up there, you go on the podium. And the biggest thing is not that I get a gold medal. Yeah, that's awesome. But one of the big things now for me is like you get, in 23 countries, you get your national anthem played.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so some teams were pissed off at hearing over and over. God damn, I hate these guys. Mm-hmm. But then when you hear your national anthem, that's one of the best things you can do because you fight for your country. It's a very, very cool moment. It's different.
Right.
But the Colombians, those guys, try to steal our first place medal for our combat sambo. It's a big trophy. They had went up and they tried to do some shady stuff.
You're not getting some cartel chases and shit, are you?
Maybe.
We gotta be careful who sees this.
Hide my face.
In this recording now.
Halfway through, blur it, please. But he would, and we went up, and it started early. We're like, what's going on? It's supposed to be at a certain time. They started early. I forgot who else walked up, second place. Colombians were holding a big trophy. At the time, my coach knew that we had won first place for combat sambo. And then the other person went up, like Venezuela went up, second place. Anyway, the Colombians were trying to steal first place trophy.
Man.
Just a picture. All he wanted was a picture. Trying to steal a picture. And my coach went berserk, like tearing people's heads off. Like,
so they were going to take a picture and take it back home, say we got first.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't matter.
Sorry, we left the trophy there,
Yeah.
but here's a picture as proof.
All that matters is like, hey, we get the proof. You see on social media, you scroll through, oh, Colombia's won, cool. But you still think Colombia's won. Mm-hmm. But so he tore their head off, and then sure enough, they ended up redoing everything. Like, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. But I have that video, so I'll try to show you one of these days.
Oh, man.
It was so crazy.
You see that, like I said, you see that everywhere, man.
Politics, man.
Everything in life.
Yeah.
Just lame.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like we were chatting about earlier. It's like, they were trying to do that so they get the recognition of it. Like we were chatting about earlier. It seems like that's all you see on social media is like everything perfect that's ever happened to anybody.
You never see the bloopers.
No, you never
Very
see
rare.
unless it's funny and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's funny and look how much I fell. It's like you don't see the shit that people are going through in life, and so they're trying to, I don't know, they're doing it for their social media. I guess if it was a picture, they had to have been doing it for that reason, which makes me want to give up so much social media because I'm legitimately addicted to it. Like I've never I have an addiction because
the problem is it's so needed for business nowadays.
Right, and so you're like, where do you draw the line? And I was watching a couple of TED Talks, and they're talking about how you get like constant dopamine hits from checking. You're like, oh, someone liked it.
Those likes.
Or you like got notifications, and it's like, dude.
I think the next thing, if anybody's listening that does any kind of app development, you can have the rights to this all you want. You need to start a app that has none of that crap. You just post. You can't even comment. Therefore, it's just a free, like let's say that you do like Instagram, but you have no likes. You can just share it, and that's basically all you get is like maybe a share, whatever. But
so you can follow people, but you don't get that little feedback.
You don't get that like.
It's like a legit dopamine, a tiny dopamine hit, and you get hooked on it, just like if any
Well,
other
I know,
drug.
like, man, why the hell did he like my stuff?
Yeah. I'm going to unfriend him or unfollow.
He's off my top 8 of my MySpace.
But at the same time, you can't write it off either. It has to be some sort of balance.
Yeah.
Because if you, you're not conquering it if you just get rid of it completely. You're conquering it if you can have it and maintain, moderation within it.
Yeah. And I think like a cool dynamic, just shooting the shit right here, but there was no likes, there's no shares, there's no follow, but it was all in the back end. And then people would say, hey, look, I do like it, but that person never got the gratification of actually seeing it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, maybe once a month, they're on like the top
Huge
10.
dopamine hit. Boom. Yeah. Everybody loves you. Everybody loves you.
Yes. Something like that. So we're not just constantly like, is he liking it? You just
Yeah.
get it once a month, something like that.
That's not a bad idea.
Something like that.
Like I said earlier, I remember the days we were with the Nokia brick phones.
Yes, my man. I still got
Longing for those days.
that. Still got that.
But what'd you do when you're in a waiting room or you're on the bus, headed somewhere?
You
you're
would
in the back?
daydream, my man. You
That's
would
what you
daydream.
would.
You
Yep,
would.
and with a magazine. I remember getting
Yes.
magazines like a fishing magazine. I'm
Yeah.
like, I would use that reel, like daydream about what I would
Yes.
fish with. Or
And I think that's a big component. Like it sounds stupid, but it's a big component that we miss in it's like foresight or, how they say like, okay, you need to visualize this.
Mhm.
I think we don't have time to do that nowadays because we're so like glued to our phones.
yeah,
So maybe it's something like I said. I am debating it. I have been weaning myself off it. I'm not gonna lie. YouTube it definitely has my love.
yeah. Well, you said if you had to pick one app, it would be YouTube for sure.
YouTube for sure.
For sure, because you're gaining all of the knowledge and all of that without having to interact so much. But I will say one of my favorite things to do is find like a viral video and read the top comments.
Oh
Dude,
my
those
God.
guys always nail it.
The
It's
comments
so
are crazy.
funny.
The comments like the best, thing
It's
to look
just
at.
as good as the
Yeah.
video. Even if it's a good video, it's
It's true.
just as good. Yeah. But I'm gonna try and use it less. That show my wife and I have been watching Black Mirror, like we had said it before. I talked about it on the last podcast. Blake was like, I was like, Black Mirror is from episode 2, and he's got stuff all over his walls. Blake was like, no, it's like your phone. I was like, oh yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. I didn't
There
realize
was
it till
one, I don't remember what it was, but they're on a building and you had a pedal on a bike. And
Yes,
then-
that's the one I was talking about.
Yes.
You know, the room he slept in, it was
Yes.
like black mirrors all around the room. That's one of my favorite ones.
yeah. It's like your phone, it's amazing.
But yeah, that wall is like our phone. It's constantly getting our attention.
The funny one was like, okay, he's spending all his money on his emoji. Like, man,
Yes.
I do that all the time.
But it's a good example of like what we're doing now. Like if you go buy $250 sneakers or something like that, you're kind of throwing your money away. But if that's your hobby, like Jeff came on, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
his thing, sneakers. But if you're getting
Sneakerhead Jeff.
Sneakerhead Jeff. But if you're getting it to try to, like, get someone to like you more or something, it just seems like this weird fucking prison that we're living in. I think that's why I'm so fascinated by that show. Like, we don't
Yes.
have a bad life. We have an amazing life. We live in this amazing country, which
Yeah.
you can point out things that are wrong with it, but we live very free. But at the same time, you're like, I think the greatest thing that we have is our attention, and it's being
I think that's more valuable than anything else.
because it's our experience,
Yeah.
and it's being taken from us.
It's literally dictating politics,
Yep.
everything in your life, what you see in ads. So, I mean, it dictates everything. Your attention. That's what you pay with. Maybe that should be the next currency instead of cash. You know, just
Whoa.
put my attention on that. 10 seconds of my attention.
That's what that was in the episode 2. Remember, he had to watch the commercials.
Oh, that's
or he
right.
got charged.
That is right. Yeah. That's right. He got charged.
So
for
his
that.
attention was,
Sly bastard still got back end money on it.
dude.
That's crazy.
It's insane to think about stuff like that, man. To think that how much we've changed since we remember using flip phones. What was 15 years ago?
Yeah. Not that long ago, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember getting my
A
first
blink of an
phone
eye.
like 15 years ago.
And like for me, like I'm not a real religious person, and this is the same reason. Like when I say I like rule sets are least restrictive as possible, right? Like for me, and this is just my beliefs. I believe that heaven and hell is all in the action that you make. So either, let's say you do some bad, choices in life. You're stressed out. People are coming to get you. Whatever. You're living in hell at that moment.
Right.
If you're doing good, you're putting good out there.
It's
you're
not a
having fun.
later destination.
Man, it's fun. You're living in the moment.
You're in heaven.
Yeah.
I
And that's what
completely
kinda
agree.
believe. Or that's what I kind of see. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree. Like we were hitting it with the martial arts, where I asked you like, what would be the best rule set? And it's like, it's the same with spirituality, religion. Like, what do they all have in common? That's usually where you can find truth.
Yep.
Like, where is the common ground where you take Buddhism and Christianity and Taoism and Islam and all these different religions? Like, what do they all have in common? That's the common ground. But people are doing with religion, like I said, people do with martial arts. They find their
Politics.
Yeah, it's politics, man. They find their identity in it, and they cling to it, and they will kill people over it.
Yeah. And we've seen it on all the wars, lately.
Yeah.
All throughout time. And it's just a thing where I think people hold so much value in it, and then they invest so much attention of their time into it that it's hard to look at yourself and say, I messed up.
Yeah.
What
That's
can I
hard
learn?
to do.
You know, I
It's
think we've
super
all
hard
done
to
it.
do. Oh, yeah.
And that's the key. Is like even in martial arts, guys that will hold on to like old, like the old, like you see like some guy doing like some hand motions right now. Where the guy flips and the guy just flies across the room.
Yeah.
I think that those guys just bought into it so deep that they just can't get out.
Right. They're too invested in
They're
it.
too invested in it, man. They got too much on it.
There was a Gracie video I remember watching. It was, remember the Gracie challenges?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It was the guy in the yellow shorts, the Kung Fu guy. Did you ever see that one? They did it at their gym.
I don't remember if they had like green mats or what, but I do remember.
Yes.
That one. Yeah.
He was fighting, and they were talking about how he had 15 years of they call it gung fu, right?
Yeah, gung
I think
fu.
that's how you actually pronounce it.
I actually trained in that.
Yeah?
Wu Wei Gung Fu. I trained there for a little bit.
Where at?
With my coach, but he would do like what's his name? Kirk Wright was one of the other guys that would show a lot of that, 'cause, like the weapon systems like that.
Trades, man.
I get obsessed with stuff and I go down a dark hole, but thankfully the dark hole is just learning.
Yeah,
You know.
that's good though. You get obsessed, then you learn it, and you move on. So the guy had trained
Yeah.
Kung Fu like 15 years, and then he got beat. I think he ended up challenging him twice. But it's very hard for him to accept that, he had committed all that time, and his sense of self was in that. Whereas you see that in jiu-jitsu now, the old school guys that don't want to do leg locks, which that's almost past now. We're almost past that, but 3 years ago, right? And they don't want to acknowledge that they've used all this time ignoring leg locks, and it's caused a detriment to their game. You see that time
Yes.
and time again. And then going back to religion, how can you spend 20 years investing your time,
Raising
all
your
of that,
family, in
raising
that
your family,
system.
yeah, and you have to tell them and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I wasn't right. But that's liberating. What people don't realize is that's super liberating to admit that you don't know everything and that you make mistakes, because making mistakes is different than failing.
Yes.
Failing is when you think your mistake is the end of you. Making a mistake and then overcoming it and learning from it, then you didn't fail.
I'm gonna totally butcher this, but I forget, is it Thomas Edison or one of the guys? He was inventing the light bulb. I forget who exactly it was, but
Edison, right?
I think it was Edison. Okay, so he said, you know what? Some guy said, "Oh, you failed 2,000 times to make a light." He said, "No." He goes, "I learned 2,000 times how not to make a light bulb."
Yep.
That blew my mind. You only got to get it right one time, guys. One time. Just keep trying.
And just change your perspective on it.
Yeah, just keep trying. You got to get it right one time. That's it.
Grappling has been a killer lesson for me on that. Is because
Totally humbling, dude.
yeah, because you're not going to win every time. You're not going to, and it teaches you that it's okay to mess up in life.
Yeah.
Because you're not a finished product. You're not expected to be perfect right now. And if you were, then what's the point of living? What's the point of being here if you're all-knowing and all-perfect? We don't know how the fuck we got here. We don't know where the fuck we're going. And we don't know how to do this the right way. We're trying to figure this out on the right.
That's what makes it beautiful, man. Like that's the fun. One thing I always say to people, I had a friend one time. He was like, "I'm not going to compete till I know I can win." I'm like, "That's never, dude."
Yep.
And I said, and I told him, and I always tell people all the time. I said, "Look," to one of my students, whatever. I said, "If the day comes that I know 100% that I can beat every one of my opponents, I'm going to quit and take up knitting."
Jeff Taylor told me that you said that several years ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, dude, that's so deep. Once you learn it all, what's the point, right?
What's the point? Like I said, that chance of 50-50, even if you know that guy's bad, I've beat guys that I've never should have beaten, and guys have beat me that never should have beat me. It doesn't matter your skill. It matters how things unfold that day.
Right.
And you're only better than that guy that day.
Right.
That's it.
And it doesn't
that's the
mean
great
anything
part.
about
Nope.
who you are or, yeah.
And that's the crazy part about that. And then one thing that I always tell my students, or even myself, people like that, when they were training, they're like, I messed this up. I didn't get it. I said, hey, it's called practice. It's not called winning.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
It's called practice,
Yeah.
not called winning. That's awesome.
It's a funny one. Like, and that's a key one that I always use, just because they're like, oh, I'm not going to get this right. I said, well, you're not trying to win, man. You're not coming here to win. You come here to practice
Right.
to be able to win later on.
It's so true.
It's just a
You
funny
get
little
better.
saying, but it's good.
So how much time we at?
110.
110.
Doing good.
All right. Have you listened to any of these podcasts before?
Yeah, my man, I'm telling you. That's what I said. I noticed when your your mics, your value in your mics, as far as like the production value went up.
Sweet.
Man, I heard. I was like, whoa, this is nice.
Dude, it's so much fun. You know why I did this? I don't know if you heard before. It's like I wrote one book. I put it on Amazon, but I always get ideas and stuff in my
You're
head.
an author.
I'm an
It's
author.
time to write the other book I told you about.
Yeah.
Telling you.
Well, I think expressing your ideas through a different medium. I think
it's medium.
Through a different medium is necessary nowadays. When's the last time you read a book?
I do read books, but
audio?
Yes. It's
So what's the same as an audiobook? Podcast.
You're definitely right, my man. I
That's
feel like
why
I
I'm
learned
doing this.
something.
Right.
That's
and
the
you can
difference.
boom, pause it. You don't have to carry it around with you. It's always in your pocket on that Black Mirror.
Dude, Jeff's story, when he cut his, I did not know he had a full head of hair. I died at work. I almost died at work.
Yeah, he told me that, and then another guy had told me that, and he told me it. I love the dude. He's one of my best friends, and I believe him 100%. There's a little
100%.
voice in my head. It's like, he's lying. He's bald.
Prove it.
Prove it, Jeff. Prove it. I could see it, though. He might
see
have
it.
like a slight receding hairline, but it's so crazy. You know, I buzzed my hair. I was growing out a little bit, and I'm like, I think I'm going to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not shave it, but buzz it.
Yeah.
It's just so convenient.
Dude, it's also very cooling.
Yeah.
When you have a lot of hair, man, it's like, oh my God.
That feeling when you get your hair cut and you
Yes,
walk
dude.
outside and you're like, oh my gosh, there's air.
Yeah.
My head can breathe. Feels
awesome.
nice, dude. All right, so I try to get to this, unless there's anything you want to hit at before we close it out.
One of the main things is that, like I said, if gripping, guys, I think that's one of the things, not that it's not looked at by coaches. I think a lot of coaches have gripping systems. I just think there's not enough data out there right now. So, I mean, if you do have gripping systems, guys, put it out there for people to learn. It's important because that's one of the big aspects of our game that go on YouTube, and I've done a lot of research on it, just preparing myself for the upcoming tournaments, grip fighting. That's what I've been obsessed with right now. What I was showing you earlier about like the French grip, Mongolian grip, American grip, and that's just how I kind of break it down to kind of make it interesting to, like, say again, oh, learn a Mongolian grip, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just taken what the top Mongolian fighter in judo, whatever
And labeled it Mongolian
and
grip.
just label it. Now they do have their own moves. They'll say this is a Mongolian style grip, but I just say, okay, like a Kimura. It's not called a Kimura, guys. That's not what it's called.
No, it's double wrist lock.
Double wrist lock. It's named after a guy named Kimura that just made it popular. And that Kimura sticks. It's nice.
Yep.
Double wrist lock's not as cool, Kimura.
I don't know. Double wrist lock sounds pretty cool.
Double chicken wing, It's like that. So I think,
Double chicken wing.
I think names are key, man. I think names are key to growing stuff, to getting it popularized and catching fire. Like, talking about like that jiu-jitsu shirt, right? What the Sambo guy saying, no, it's not as jiu-jitsu. If it was called...
If Sambo was easy, it'd be called
There you go.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was only caught fire, and we remember that because it was controversial. You're like,
Yeah.
dang, I can't believe he said that shit.
They say any press is good press, whether it's positive or negative.
Positive or negative, man. We're still talking about it right now, to this day.
That's why I want to get you on here, man. I wanted you to help get the Sambo word out.
Yeah, like I said, we have a training class right now. We're one of the only schools with a couple hundred miles, Sambo, Texas. We just got that started out. My main goal for Sambo, Texas, all the money that we get for it, like I said, I'm not going to be spending a dime of it for myself. It'll just be for equipment, but mainly going to be doing it to save up a pool and then get awesome, amazing coaches to our area. I think that's the biggest reason is there's not enough awesome guys in our area.
Right.
So I'm going to try to use as much money as I can from that when we generate from students or, little seminars coming up, that we're going to try to pull down these awesome level coaches, bring that talent to our area, have them offer those seminars, get them exposure, but also just give another element of grappling to the DFW area. And we're the only school besides Houston, I think, on the national registry, or the global registry for Sambo schools in Texas.
Oh, so you are on the registry?
Yeah, they have like a little world registry list.
How could people reach out to you if they wanted to?
You can get us on like Facebook, Sambo Texas. We do have an Instagram, Sambo Texas as well. I don't think we're going to do a website for that one just because we want to keep it on Facebook and focus it on Facebook and Instagram for right now.
And you said you were thinking about starting a podcast for Sambo pretty soon?
Yes, it's going to be a two-part thing. We're going to do Sambo Texas is going to be, like I always use an example, man, all the time. Build it, and they will come.
Yeah.
You put a school here in Duncanville, Cedar Hill, guess what? They all came. It's got the Magnus Empire. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Build it, they will come.
Right.
And that's the key thing is, we need to just offer that medium in that metroplex where we don't have it. Two, I also need to be training, so I need to be a little bit greedy here and there for myself. But
yeah,
if anybody does want to come and work the rule set, we work the rule set 100%. It's not BJJ, it's not no gi. You do wear, a gi top is cool, or a Kirk if you want to get one. But Mondays 7 to 8, and then Tuesday and Thursday we have an early class at 5:30 to 6:30.
And you guys are in Arlington.
In Arlington, yeah. So I mean, just look it up, Sambo Texas on Facebook. Find it out. Come there and compete. Have fun.
Sweet. All right, and then totally different subject. I ask
sir.
everybody that comes
Yes,
on
sir.
here, what's your cure for the world? If you could suggest one thing.
Put down your damn phone.
Put down your damn phone.
Okay.
No more
Stop
Black
paying
Mirror.
stop paying with your attention.
That's good,
Yeah,
man.
invest it somewhere else wisely. That's what I gotta say.
That's badass, dude. It was so much fun.
It was
to have you
fun,
on.
man. Thank you so
Thank
much.
You. You will definitely be back. Appreciate it,
Yes,
man.
sir.
All right, we done.